Everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Let me share my screen. First of all, thanks for taking your time to join this session on SAP IAG. We are actually expecting few more participants to join, but we'll get started with with this. So, just a quick introduction about myself. Myself, Sarvesh, and I carry close to around like 14 years of experience in SAP, and I've been in entrepreneurship journey since last 5 years. I am a founder and CTO of a company called as Datanav Technologies. We are primarily into SAP, GRC, SAP cybersecurity, and SAP integration space. And personally, like I have trained and I have mentored close to 100 plus people in SAP IAG in last couple of years, and close to 200 plus people I have trained in other technologies on SAP process control, risk management, audit management, and on ABAP and so on. So the primary objective of this session is to give the a glimpse of IAG, why we need IAG, what is IAG, and what are all the aspects which we need to be aware when we want to prepare towards a typical IAG implementation and so on. I'll keep it more in terms of the complete understanding of the subject, not only in terms of the technical side, but also to get the complete glimpse of the overall topic and how IAG evolved and what would be the future of IAG looks like and so on. So that is what like I'm just gonna cover in next 45 minutes, and then like I'll also like open up or unmute yourself. I'll allow to unmute yourself after 45 minutes exactly from now, where we can have a discussion in terms of like the questions like you might be having and more in terms of like the to answer your specific questions. So that's like what like I have planned, and please hold all your questions till then, so that like I'll try to cover all the topics which I would need to cover as a part of this masterclass session. And definitely like if at all like the question is it's a bit broader to discuss, then probably definitely like you can also email me and I'll be absolutely happy to connect with one-on-one and take those questions as well. So let's get into the first and the foremost section, which I would like to speak about. So the first and foremost is enablers for intelligent enterprise. So Sarvesh, like you want to speak about IAG, or this session is primarily like IAG masterclass. So why we need to have an understanding of enablers of intelligent enterprise. So this is like one common thing which I always start, or uh, which I always express in all of my seminars or like webinars. In order to understand why we need IAG, or what is IAG, or what is SAP Cloud, we need to understand what are all the key enablers for an intelligent enterprise. So we are living in 21st century, where the technological transformation takes place every year. And more or less every 3 years, we tend to change the technologies which we adopt, the technologies which we live every day, and so on. So it is 100% important, even in our work, that the technologies, whatever we are adopting or we are using, so we need to keep those things up to date so that we drive towards an intelligent enterprise, or we build to an intelligent enterprise to make our company an intelligent enterprise company. So whatever like we have been hearing in terms of the generative AI or open AI or ChatGPT or any generative AI frameworks, so we keep hearing about co-pilots and adoption of open AI everywhere, and that led to lots of transformation in last couple of years, like hardly like I don't know, 1.5 to 2 years. And prior to that, there was a narrative on cloud adoption, and the cloud adoption before the narration of a cloud adoption, the cloud computing. And the next big thing which we can also foresee is on quantum computing and the evolution of quantum computing will also slowly and gradually will grow. So just to quote an example that the PKI or the private key which we take in all the password applications at this point of time, it takes almost 200 years to encrypt the password from the physical computer like what we are using at this point of time with a good well-known configuration. But the same thing when we consider a quantum computer, it can decode the password in less than 3 seconds. So that indicates the businesses and the processes needs to keep evolving. And in order to facilitate or to make businesses and processes more evolving, we should also supplement or complement that businesses and processes with the tools and the framework. So that is what the application will help. So the first and the foremost is business can't run the way it has been running in 1993 or 1980s or in 2013, how it was been running. It's not the same. So after 2019, 2020, the supply chain model of the entire world got changed. So it is absolutely very important to understand that the present supply chain requires tremendous amount of more data points, key decisions, and the time in order to do this has been drastically reduced. The decision making should be extremely quick. At the same time, it should also be dynamic, and it is not only like in terms of detective model, rather it is a preventive, or in many cases it needs to be predictive model. So that's what the processes and the business requirement requires at this point of time. So to facilitate that, so the applications which needs to be developed to automate or to build this business processes needs to also be evolved, or it needs to be in a pace which is exactly how dynamic and quick the processes needs to be built or performed. The application also needs to be in accordance with the speed and the momentum of the application. So to do all that, it is extremely difficult, or I would say it is completely impossible for any application companies or any companies to carry out this and considering only the on-premise world. So we can take an example of traditional R3 system. So the R3 system got evolved in 1993, and till 2004, R3 is actually like has done a tremendous amount of work, and the R3 was been ruling the entire show. And from 2004, the ECC or the NetWeaver started evolving, and till then, like till 2015 or 2014, the amount of NetWeaver or the R3 was no more, and then everything was on ECC and NetWeaver. And then again, like from 2014 to 2023, the amount of momentum which has been in S4 Foundation is actually like gaining more and more. But the same thing cannot happen further. The requirement is every 3 years once, or in case of an enterprise application, it is every 3 years once. But in case of a consumer-based application, it's less than a year or less than 7 to 8 months, where the technology keeps evolving and things keeps changing. So to make sure whatever like we are developing and whatever it is available as a platform, so that both should be in accordance, and we should always make sure that whatever we are developing, whatever we are using, whatever we are consuming, it should be exactly very similar to that of whatever the adoption which is required for this business processes. So that being said, the applications should be dynamic. The application should be uh, hosted it in cloud, so that all the recent upgrades, all the recent security threats or security breaches, or all the recent functionalities, like we are speaking more about generative these days after ChatGPT and Google's conversational models and so on. So to adopt to those models, and again, there is a saying like Apple is going to come up with their own framework on generative AI. So all these adoptions becomes easier if an application or if a technology has been developed on cloud, rather than developing the technology in an on-premise, where we have seen the narration of every 10 years, the things gets changed, and it keeps evolving on every 10 years once. So that's not possible going forward. So the same way, the technologies on which this particular application has been developed, that is also something which needs to keep changing, and it needs to keep evolving as the application goes deep and deep. For example, whenever we go and we use it to do anything on LinkedIn, or whenever we use it to go and do anything on Facebook or Instagram. So now we can see lots of AI features getting embedded. And the reason for all that is the underlying technologies, whatever they use, Node or Angular or Ruby or any platform which they try to use it. So the open framework or the open UI framework will help us to get to that. And all these technologies on underlying the applications are built should be an application, or should be something which can be exchanged. The data exchange should happen in more open way, and it should be an universal way. So we can't just rely on a particular programming model specific to one company and not nurturing that programming model to work with other companies. Then it becomes a challenge. So the technologies again needs to be evolved in such a way that it all works seamlessly. And more importantly, the infrastructure, whatever we have it to supplement or to complement that technology. And typical is for on-premise application. If I want to host it with around, I would say 10 users, or I would say 15 users or 20 users, approximately I would require minimum of 128 GB of RAM, minimum of 500 GB of SSD, minimum of around some 16 to 22, 16 to 32 cores, and that's a very big investment for a small company. And if the scale up goes happen, up and up, then the amount of investment is more. The same way, if I want to just buy it for one user, and I just subscribe and use it only for one particular user. And as my company grows, my cash flow in my company grows, then I can invest more and more, and I'll be able to gain the momentum of my company in accordance with whatever the company growth with the infrastructure and the underlying technology application and the processes. As it gets more complex and complex, I can continue to invest more and more on this and make it more beneficial. So that's a key message. So in short, this is the main thing which is like my favorite portion, the people. So coming on to all these points, so the people plays a very important role, that adapting to the day-to-day problems, like whatever the challenges which we have in infrastructure or technology or application or in business processes, to make a company into a small company, into a mid-size, into a multi-billion dollar company. So the people plays a very crucial role to make the company to work in this direction. To put this long story in short, if we want to make an enterprise, an intelligent enterprise, these are all the mission critical activities which we need to do. And doing this in on-premise application at the rate on which the technology is growing is practically impossible. And that is very much true even in SAP's landscape. And that's where SAP is moving more towards the cloud-based applications. And if we see last 3 quarter SAP's revenue, or in terms of SAP market cap, or in terms of SAP's investment, we can see clearly the momentum or the holistic view of SAP is only towards cloud. And there is one application, or there is one platform, or there is one infrastructure, whatever SAP is either buying it or investing or building it. All of these applications are on cloud. So it can be purchase of Signovia in recent months, or it can be purchase of AppGear an year ago, or it can be purchase of SuccessFactors couple of years back, or in Ariba. Between 2013 to 2023, the amount of SAP's acquisition or their homegrown products, it is all through cloud, and it's mission critical by 2027 that we need to have an understanding of how to move an organization from an on-premise to a cloud application so that the organization can participate in the race of becoming an intelligent enterprise. Okay, Sarvesh, this is good. I understand that. Okay, so you are telling like intelligent enterprise is these are all the enablers for intelligent enterprise. And what does this matter, Sarvesh, for me from a security background? So why I need to know? Like I'm happily doing my SAP security through PFCG, SE01, and so on. Why I need to be aware of all this? So I don't deal anyway with business processes. Of course, I deal with my application, but I deal only with my application. Technology, yes, I understand. So this is something which is changing, and infrastructure, I'm not bothered about. So from a security perspective, or like from a wider GRC perspective, Sarish, why I should be bothered about this? Because we are at the center, or we are the one who will be handling the day in, day out of handling the risk in an on-premise application at this point of time. So whether the risk is originating from an infrastructure, the risk is originating from a technology, or the risk is originating from an application, or the risk which is primarily inherited in a business processes, we as a GRC consultants or as a security consultants play a very crucial role in handling all this thing. And why we need to be aware of all this and how we need to be equipped to handle this. So that is what we need to understand it. And there is a saying, this is like one of my best saying, the illiterate of the 21st century is not those who can't read and write, but those who cannot learn. Please make a note of this word, unlearn and relearn, because it is very, the way how it is extremely important to learn something, that is also equally important to unlearn something what we have learned. And this is one of the biggest challenge which people who are mainly in the technical transition of their career are undergoing. I have seen multiple people suggest like, this is how it works in GRC, this is how it works in SAP security. It's the same thing which also happens in IAG. This is one common question. Salish, this is so much easy in GRC, but we need to do the same thing in IAG. It is problem. So as important as we learn IAG, or as important as we learn SAP's cloud technology and so on, it is equally important we also unlearn something what we learn, because whatever adoption we have it for an on-premise application, the underlying architecture on which the typical on-premise application is built, that is totally different, and the way how things happens in cloud is extremely totally different. So we should not compare what we already know with what we want to learn. So it is very important when we are being a customer, where we are taking the information from a partner in implementing a solution, or when we are a partner who are implementing the solution to the customer, to hear and to answer those questions which typically customer asks, who has been using SAP since last 20 years. Unfortunately, their entire transformation is only on on-premise, and now they want to move out of that on-premise application, or they want to supplement their on-premise application with an BTP or with an application which is more towards or inclined towards cloud. Then these are all the common narration which we need to start telling to them and make them understand that, okay, so this is how things happens in on-premise application, and this is how it happens in cloud application. And that is extremely challenging, and that's one of the important thing which we need to know when we are adopting or when we are moving towards on-premise application to a cloud application, or to make an enterprise, an intelligent enterprise. So now, like Sarvesh, okay, so what does this matter again for the security consultant perspective? So the typical user management scenario, like what we see it in our GRC, or whether we see it in SAP security. So like whether we use CUA or we don't use CUA, or like it in simple words, the entire underlying architecture of SAP user management is primarily on user creation. So either we can holistically or primarily use only one system, that can be a CUA system, or that can be a GRC system, where we carry out the complete workflow process, we carry out the complete role process, and then we carry out the complete user group process, and then finally dump those data into SU01 in the corresponding system. Or we sit in SU01 in the main system, and we carry out the complete processes over there and get the response or details from another third-party system or within an application system. So that's usually the narration has always been in SAP application. So now, like once we move towards BTP or once we move towards cloud, so then we have something called as role collection, we have something called as IDP, and again within IDP we have something called as CUA, and we also have something called as SAML, metadata. All these are the terminologies, which is something extremely new, and these are all typically cloud applicational terminologies. And as a person from a typical on-premise environment, like I might have been a great security consultant, worked extensively on role designing process or user management process and risk management process. When it comes to the way how typically the cloud application works, then I need to start learning everything from scratch. And this is also applicable in case of a role management. When it comes to role management, we are not dealing with only one application, like how we deal in case of an on-premise world. So we deal with SuccessFactors application. We also deal with Ariba. We deal with Fieldglass. We deal with S4H. We deal with Signovia. So many applications which are being built, and all this application, the more difficult part is these applications will not have one single, or they don't have one single framework on which the applications are being built. If you take SuccessFactors, that is a company which was existed previously and SAP has acquired. There is a company called as Ariba, and Ariba is again an acquired company. Fieldglass is again an acquired company. Signovia, it's again an acquired company. It's not like we had one single framework called as SAP NetWeaver, on top of which all the SAP applications are being built. It's not like SAP S4 Foundation where all the HANA systems are being built. These cloud applications are being built in different frameworks, different technologies, and different platforms. And the management of the way how the things are being managed at the security level is totally different. And that is extremely true in case of risk management of these applications as well. And the risk management is not only at the infrastructure level, because it is hosted on cloud, the risk can also be penetrating when we deal with integrating those systems as well. Now I'm an employee. I'm an employee of SAP purchasing team, for example. So my company also has Ariba. Then I will also be a part of purchasing group, and I may be also part of an employee master. So I should also exist in SuccessFactors. I'm also an approver of my contract workers. So I should also be present in Fieldglass. So now, like, I have 4 systems, and if I have something conflicting in one place, it will have an adverse effect in another place. So holistically, sitting it in my GRC system or sitting in my only one systems will not be helpful. So all this are the challenges which we have it when we want to move from a normal application or normal enterprise into an intelligent enterprise, and how to overcome these challenges. So that's the reason, or that's the model on which the BTP framework has been developed. And all the applications post BTP framework, introduction of BTP framework, one common thing what we will be seeing in those applications, or all those applications are being built, developed, deployed, and consumed in BTP itself. It can be an example, like the simple example can be our IAG system, or the equivalent of process control and risk management solution called as financial compliance management. That is again built on BTP framework. Business Application Studio, which is the framework which is being used by ABAPers, or which has been used by UEFI consultants to develop Fiori application, that is again built on BTP. And whether it can be like the very recent application which got introduced and year back, SAP AI, where like SAP's own AI platform or AI technology. So that is again built on BTP. So any application which will be evolved after BTP is absolutely or 100% will be built in BTP framework. So with the help of BTP, SAP is trying to unify the entire SAP suite into one single umbrella. And when it comes to security, the go-to factor or the go-to stuff is going to be on SAP BTP. And within SAP BTP, we have a technology or we have a model on which entire all of these applications are going to work together, and that is what we call it as SAP IAM. And that is what I'm going to discuss it for next couple of minutes on what is SAP IAM, what does SAP IAM consist of, and then where exactly IAG comes into the picture, and what are all the different things which we have it inside IAG and so on. So this is a mind map which tells the same thing. So SAP IAM or identity access management is a terminology which is residing in BTP. So like once we sign up for the BTP account, the global account, and once we have been allocated with the BTP global account, whether or not we want to use the SAP IAM, indirectly like the SAP IAM will be a part of the global BTP account. So now, for example, Sarvesh, I'm not interested to go for IAG, but by default, the BTP will have SAP IAM inside it. So let us take an example. I want to implement SAP Cloud ALM, which is again an equivalent of SAP Solution Manager or extension of SAP Solution Manager in cloud. And now I go to BTP and I just go and do a subscription for SAP Cloud ALM. By default, we will also have a SAP IAM component installed, or it will come by default. I want to go and install IBP. By default, the SAP IAM component get installed inside this. So the IAM is basically a framework like how we have SAP Basis and SAP ABA framework in our on-premise application, where we have a typical user management and the role management in one single umbrella or one single framework across material management or sales and distribution or production planning or plant maintenance. The same way, the user management portfolio within SAP BTP are been completely governed through SAP IAM. SAP IAM internally has multiple components in it. And the first component is what we call it as IAS or Identity Authentication Services. And in on-premise world, this is nothing but equivalent to that of SSO. So now, like as an employee of my intelligent enterprise, I will have access to IBP. I will also have access to SAP Signovia. I'll have access to Cloud ALM. I will also have access to my SuccessFactor, Ariba, Concur, Fieldglass, and so on. So now I don't want to remember my user ID and password in all of the system. And like how we have the same topic in our on-premise world, that I can implement SSO through my SNC, and I just need to remember one user ID and password, which is my AD user ID and password. So now like I want to do the same thing in cloud applications. How can I do it? If we are in BTP and if you're using any of these applications, whatever I've said, by default, we will have IAS installed in the BTP account. And what we need to do is we need to establish an IDP or identity provider, which is basically establishing an authentication with the application which we are trying to connect with. So now, like as I said, this is again, it's not like a simple RFC connection, what we are going to establish in an on-premise application to establish this linkage, like how we do LDAP configuration or we do SNC configuration in on-premise. This does not work like that because we are going to deal with two different cloud applications, and the data package or the interaction between these two cloud applications should happen through a token model. A token is a default model which has been used in any cloud applications. And to receive a token and to send a token, we need to make sure like we are following the protocol, which is universal in nature. At the same time, it is also should be secure so that the hacker who is sitting in any corner of the sender and the receiver can easily get the data and perform some suspicious or fraudulent activities. So to avoid all this, each and every time an application exchange interaction between another, a token gets generated, and all this is what we will be configuring, and we can deal with IAS. The cloud equivalent of SSO is IAS, and in addition to this, IAS has multiple other functionalities, like it can help in integrating our SAP BTP with the other IDPs, like whether it can be Azure, for example. So now, like I have an Azure, and whenever I create a user in Azure, by default, I should have the BTP users or the corresponding applications inside this BTP BTP account. Like I have my Signovia application, or like I have my Fieldglass application, or I have my Business Application Studio application. So now I want to create a user. As soon as I create a user in my Azure AD. So how that is possible? That all happens through IAS. And within IAS, like we have some great features like SAML integration. We also have metadata integration. We can also do our own company branding. Service, like we don't want the BTP normal look. Like I want some fancy look of BTP where my company logo needs to be there, and also it will always follow. And again, I don't want to expose the BTP URL. I want to mask the URL, and I want a specific way the URL should get listed. All that thing, or all the configuration, or all the setting is possible via IAS. And the same thing also goes to the next component. This next is what we call it as IPS, or Identity Provisioning Service. So now, like we are dealing with multiple applications here. Like I have my BTP application, which has been developed in a technology called as Gamma or Cloud Foundry. And I have my Ariba system, or I have my SuccessFactors system, which has been developed in another framework or technology, which is completely different. So now, like I want the data exchange to happen between both of this application, and the secure data connection should happen between both of this application. And the way the interaction should happen should be universal in nature, so that like tomorrow, like I bring a new application, it should also be able to communicate with that. And all that happens, or all that magic happens through IPS. And IPS stands for Identity Provisioning Service, where everything, whatever we send and receive between BTP application and other applications, like what we are going to integrate with, it all happens through JSON. And SAP or SAP provides, and we can also write our own transformations to carry out this read and write transformation, which we can write it or we can consume to it, so that we can integrate applications and effectively and efficiently, securely transfer the data between both of these applications. So IPS is exactly very similar to that of our IDM solution, what we have it in on-premise. One of the famous solution of SAP, when we have non-SAP systems or non-SAP on-premise systems with GRC or with other systems, like we always use IBM, and IPS can be exactly treated very similar to that of an IDM in on-premise world. Now comes the final thing, or the most important thing for today's discussion, IAG. And IAG is actually like, if I don't want to have a risk analysis functionality, if I don't want to have the features or the benefits what typically access control provides, then I don't need this bit in SAP IAM. By default, IAS and IPS comes out of free. Like once you buy a global account, by default, Cloud Identity Services comes out of free, where you can go ahead and you can implement it. Of course, like if you want to do any customization and so on, there is a cost involved in it. Like whenever you buy any applications within any of this, and those applications are authenticated or provided through IAS and IPS, you will again get this for free. And you don't want any risk analysis portion, and you don't want it any functionalities which is very similar to that of access control. I don't want to have one unified place where I will be doing the audit analysis of my users. I don't want to have any workflows defined and all. Then we technically don't need IAG. So this is very similar to that of our on-premise world of ISO 01. where like I'm just dealing only with users, I'm dealing with roles, and I'm dealing with user groups. If my limitation is only on this, then with this component itself, like we can survive. Now, the same way, how we need a unified tool to do user management, role management in on-premise through GRC. The cloud equivalent of GRC is what we call it as IAG, or Identity Access Governance. And the beauty of this IAG, or Identity Access Governance, is not only the tool which is built to handle only cloud applications. So it is also capable to do the same functionalities even for an on-premise application. So again, IAG comes in two flavors or two different licensing models. So the first one is what we call as the standalone licensing model, where our end users here I'm trying to say is the GRC users or IAG users. They no need to log in into IAG to carry out any of the work. Sitting in their GRC access control system itself, they can do a provisioning, they can do the complete risk analysis and all that for the cloud applications. Then they can opt for IAG Bridge. So IAG Bridge is nothing but enabling access control to do cloud provisioning as well. So, and this has a number of capabilities uh, in in MSMP or the workflows, or it can be in terms of audit log, the amount of customizations and all. We can go for IAG Bridge. The same thing when it comes to an on-premise. I have only few on-premise applications, and I have many cloud applications, and most of my investment is on cloud. And I don't want to have very complex workflows. I don't want to have very big customization, and I want to live or I want to be with so close to standard as much as possible. Then we can go ahead for a standalone IAG IAG way of implementation, where within the BTP I'll be installing the IAG application, and then like we have an option which is very similar to that of like what we have it in GRC. So for a on-premise application and for a cloud application in one single umbrella IAG, we can do a cross-system risk analysis. For an on-premise application and for a cloud application, sitting in one single place, I can do or I can create a business role. And through the concept of business role, I can just create only one role, one business role, where I will have the roles from my on-premise S4HANA system roles. I'll have my Ariba roles. I'll also have my SuccessFactors roles. I'll have my Fieldglass roles. So I'll combine together, and in one single place, I can carry out the risk analysis, or I can carry out the role building. And more importantly, with whatever I have done in step 1 and 2, where I have created my risk, and I have created the risk library, and then like I have created my role, which is required for a specific user. I can assign both of this, and I can perform a complete analysis, risk analysis in my access request, and I can submit the access request, where once the access request is approved, the systems will get the users will get provisioned in all the systems. So assume a situation like this, where I want to raise 5 requests sitting in 5 different systems and 5 different approvals, 5 different users IDs and passwords, and all this shared to a same user. So rather than all that, what I just need to do is I just need to create one request where I will have 5 different systems, and I have one business role to control or to combine all this information. If at all like I have a risk, then I can go ahead and I can mitigate that risk and then submit the request. Sarvesh, okay, all this looks fine. So now like I have an emergency access management. So do we have that in IAG? So we have privilege access management, which is exactly very similar to that of emergency access management. And it also goes for certification process like user access review functionality, what we have in on-premise application. The same thing also exists in IAG. So the main important thing, like what I was just trying to tell over this particular slide, uh, learn, unlearn, and relearn. This is again, I want to highlight it now. Sarvesh, if I want to build a complex MSMP workflow, what I have it in access control, can I do the same thing in IAG? Not possible. IAG supports only 4 different stages, and those 4 stages are only possible. We can't add multiple stages, neither we can't have multiple path. Of course, we can have a path, but all of those paths should be supported. Otherwise, like we need to do a big cloud development to get that functionality. Again, Sarvesh, like, do we have the concept of privilege access management for cloud applications also? At this point of time, the privilege access management or emergency access management is supported only for S/4HANA on cloud and S/4HANA on premise, and of course, like any systems which has latest version of NetWeaver or S4 Foundation. The privilege access management for cloud applications are yet to come. Service, do I have password self-service in IAG, which I always use it for my um, user. So whether the same functionality is possible? No. IAG does not have password self-service, and these are all some of the limitations at this point of time. But as we are seeing, the evolution of products takes its own time. But since this product is hosted in cloud, the evolution will be much faster than how it needs to be there in cloud. And I'm seeing, at least in the last couple of years, I have seen many great things coming in IAG, and I strongly believe that there are many more functionalities which is going to come. And since it is cloud, the adoption or the implementation is extremely easier. So this is what I want to cover primarily as a part of this session. So just to give the glimpse of why we need IAG, why we need BTP, and again, like what are all the base functionalities which exist in IAG and in BTP. And now just a final slide before opening it for question is like, okay, so now Sarvesh, all this is looking fine. So now, like, I want to proceed further and take up multiple ways or channels through which how I can reach out to you. So there are different channels through which you can reach out to me. Like, so whether you are from a place where you want to implement SAP IAG and you are exploring options or you are exploring ways through which like we can do that, then we can definitely provide a consulting services or project services as our customers. And in your geographical location or in your customers, you would like to build IAG and you are looking for a competency or a preferred partner who have good amount of case studies, who have done this work in multiple places and who are experts on this. Now you want to collaborate it. We are 100% open to have a partner collaboration with you. And Sarvesh, like I want to learn IAG, and I want to unlearn something and I want to learn IAG. Then 100% we have a training services for individual as well as for corporates, and you can reach out to us and we will be extremely happy to do it. So after this session, I'll be forwarding all these documents via email to the same link which you have registered. And now I would like to take up any specific questions you have it, and then like we can see. So now I would like to unmute, and you can unmute and you can ask any questions like if you have. Is it allowing? Is the system is allowing to unmute? No, IAG will not replace access management. This has been evident and this has been confirmed because there is a new version of access management already gonna come in 2026. The S/4HANA version of access management is gonna come in 2026. So that way, for sure, IAG will not be replaced, or access control will not be replaced by IAG. So we will definitely have the next version of access control coming, and SAP has already released the note, and so that will be there. Yes, so I joined late. Can I get the recording? Yes, 100%. So this recording, I'll be posting this recording even in YouTube, and then I'll be sharing that in my LinkedIn page as well. And but definitely you can see it everything from there. Is there a functionality? Let me read through. So, is there a functionality to move HR business role along the through sets to production rather? Yes. So there is one concept in IAG called as HR driven identity access management. So where from if you're using SuccessFactors system, then 100% SuccessFactors to IAG, we have a concept, but it does not distinguish or differentiate between test environment and production environment. Probably you need to connect the test environment to the corresponding sub account where you would like to link to IAG, and you can handle it from through that. Probably I want to understand this question in detail. So Isham, probably I'll connect with you over in person or over a call so that I can handle this, I can answer this question more correctly rather than with my guess of understanding your question rather than handling it that I would like to handle it in a more appropriate way. So I'll probably take up this question separately with you. Okay. I think that's all questions we had, and I'm ahead of 10 minutes. And uh, just to uh, just to tell few more things which will be beneficial. I'm just sharing my screen. Yeah. So this is actually our company details, and you can see under resources and blogs. So I keep publishing every Monday and every Wednesday. I keep publishing an article predominantly on SAP Cloud, SAP IAG, SAP Access Control, Process Control, Risk Management. So I would suggest either you can follow me in LinkedIn if you're not following me, or you can see under resource under blog section. I write lots of articles whether it can be the importance of business road in IAG, the importance of PRF plus, the importance of business roles, now how we can carry out an IAG provisioning for SAP SAC system, for example. What are all the reasons uh, why you need to move towards SAP IAG, when you can consider IAG and when you should not, yeah, and how the workflow works in IAG. So all these are different topics which I keep speaking and writing a lot in our company blog. And again, I'll be publishing this article even in LinkedIn. So if you are not following me in LinkedIn, kindly do follow me so that you will get to see this information as well. So that's all I had for today, and have a good rest of the day, and take care, everyone. Bye.